You have been taught that authenticity is a virtue, that an open book earns trust. This is the most dangerous lie ever told. It is a slave's morality designed to make you predictable, legible, and ultimately controllable. What if the source of all power was not in revealing your truth, but in mastering the art of the unreadable soul? We live in an age that worships transparency. The common man is compelled by culture and by technology to broadcast his every thought, his every sentiment, his every fleeting reaction. He calls it being genuine. He believes his unfiltered honesty is a shield of virtue. In reality, it is a prison of his own making. This compulsion to share, to be known, to be understood, is the single greatest strategic vulnerability a person can possess. Think of it. When your rivals, your colleagues, even your allies, know exactly what angers you, what pleases you, what you fear and what you desire, you cease to be a player in the game of life. You become the game board itself. They no longer have to guess your moves. They can orchestrate circumstances with the sole purpose of eliciting a specific, predictable response from you. They play upon your known vanities with flattery to disarm you. They provoke your known tempers to make you act rashly. They dangle your known desires before you to lead you into a trap. Every piece of personal information you volunteer is a map you hand-deliver to your enemies, a map that shows the precise location of every weakness, every insecurity, every unguarded flank of your character. The predictable man is the controllable man. His life is not a series of choices, but a sequence of programmed reactions. He mistakes his emotional responses for acts of will, never realizing he is merely a puppet, whose strings are being pulled by those who have taken the time to study him. His downfall is not a tragedy. It is a simple matter of cause and effect, an outcome as certain as gravity. He operates on the noble but naive assumption that the world should reward his openness, that his virtue should be its own defense. He plays by a set of rules that exist only in his mind, while the world operates on a harder, colder, and immutable logic of power. In this unforgiving arena, the open book is always the first to be torn apart. It is a fatal error to believe that showing your hand is a sign of confidence. It is merely a sign that you do not understand the nature of the game. The idealist, in his quest to be understood by all, ensures he is mastered by any who wish to do so. His transparency is not a window to his soul, but a cage around it. This is where the path of the prince diverges. Where the common man seeks to be understood, the prince seeks to be inscrutable. The covert trait that bends reality to your will is not some mystical force. It is the cold, deliberate discipline of strategic dissimulation. Machiavelli understood a fundamental truth that the modern world has desperately tried to forget. A man who wishes to make a profession of goodness in everything must necessarily come to ruin among so many who are not good. Therefore, the wise ruler must learn how not to be good, and to use this knowledge or not according to necessity. This is not a call for mindless villainy. It is a lesson in strategic reality. The first territory a prince must conquer is himself. He must seal the gates of his own mind. While the common man's soul is an open field for anyone to wander through, the prince's is a fortress. It has high walls, few guards are visible, and only one gate, a gate to which only he holds the key. He alone decides what information is allowed to leave and when. He understands that every opinion withheld is a strategic option preserved. Every emotion mastered is a vulnerability denied to the enemy. Every plan kept in shadow cannot be countered. This mastery of self creates an aura of profound and unsettling mystery. Others cannot read you. They cannot predict your next move. This forces them onto the defensive. They begin to exhaust their mental and emotional energy trying to decipher your intentions, making them prone to error, forcing them to reveal their own plans and weaknesses in their attempt to get a reaction from you. You are no longer reacting to the world. You are forcing the world to react to you. You are not a piece on the board. You are the unseen hand moving the pieces. This is not deception for its own sake. It is the art of becoming illegible. You observe everything. You listen intently, but you reveal nothing unless it serves a calculated purpose. You let others fill the silence with their own anxieties and assumptions, which gives you more information and thus more power. This discipline, this fortress of the mind, is the foundation upon which all lasting power is built. It is the understanding that in a world of noise, silence is a weapon. In a world of transparency, mystery is a shield and a sword. For in the theater of power, the man who everyone can read is the first to leave the stage. The true sovereign is not the loudest voice in the room, but the most inscrutable mind. This is the first truth of the Machiavellian method. Power is not claimed by what you show, but mastered by what you strategically withhold. Comment "Silence is a weapon" to seal this knowledge, and subscribe to discover how to build your fortress of mind. Once the fortress of the mind is secure, its outer wall, the face, must be perfected. This is the architecture of illegible power. The prince understands that his face is not a mirror to his soul, but a strategic instrument, a chiseled mask of command to be worn in the great theater of statecraft. The masses, Machiavelli observed, judge more by what they see than by what they feel. Everyone sees what you appear to be, he wrote. Few experience what you really are. This is the cornerstone of your power. It is not necessary to possess all the virtues of mercy, faith, humanity, and integrity, but it is essential to appear to possess them. This is not hypocrisy. It is the highest form of strategic control. Consider the general facing a losing battle. If his face betrays fear, panic will shatter his army before the enemy even strikes. But if he presents a mask of unshakable calm, a facade of calculated resolve, his men will find strength in his certainty. They will fight beyond their limits, not for the reality of their situation, but for the reality he has projected. He has bent their emotional world to his will, and in doing so may very well bend the outcome of the battle itself. This is a war waged within, long before it is declared without. The common man is a slave to his impulses. His face is a canvas for every fleeting emotion, a flash of anger, a flicker of envy, a blush of shame. The prince wages a relentless campaign against these natural reactions. He practices the art of the neutral expression, the thoughtful pause, the measured glance. He trains himself to feel the surge of rage or the flush of victory internally, while allowing none of it to breach the fortress of his composure. This discipline is excruciating. It is a constant act of will, but its rewards are immeasurable. An unreadable face becomes a void into which others project their own hopes, fears, and assumptions. When you offer no emotional data, your opponents are forced to invent it. In their desperate attempt to decipher you, they inadvertently reveal everything about themselves. Their probing questions expose their anxieties. Their attempts at flattery reveal what they believe you value. Their provocations show where they perceive your weaknesses to be. You become a black mirror, reflecting their own strategies back at them while your own remain cloaked in shadow. Your calm is not emptiness. It is a state of supreme observation, a vantage point from which you gather intelligence while others expend energy in a futile game of guesswork. This mastery of appearance is not passive. It is the necessary prelude to decisive action. The illegible prince extends this control to an economy of action, administering reward and punishment not as emotional reactions, but as calculated investments in his power. Where the common man gives freely when he feels generous and lashes out when he feels angry, the prince understands that both benevolence and severity are currencies to be spent with strategic precision. Machiavelli instructs that benefits should be conferred slowly, piece by piece, so their flavor lingers. This is not about genuine kindness. It is about the performance of magnanimity. A small, well-publicized act of generosity, a calculated pardon, a timely reward, these are investments in public perception. They build a reservoir of goodwill, a reputation for fairness that can absorb the shock of future necessities. A slow, steady stream of small favors makes a ruler seem benevolent and approachable, creating loyalty that is far more durable than that bought by grand, single gestures which are quickly forgotten. Each small benefit is a thread woven into the tapestry of his reputation, a tapestry that can later conceal the sharp lines of a dagger. On the other side of the ledger is the administration of severity. Where benefits are a slow drip, Machiavelli advises that injuries should be inflicted all at once so that, being tasted less, they offend less. This is the principle of surgical violence. The prince does not engage in petty cruelty. That only breeds a simmering, persistent hatred, which is the most unstable foundation for power. Instead, when an enemy must be removed or a rebellion crushed, the action must be swift, total, and decisive. It should be a thunderclap that stuns and terrifies, a singular event that cauterizes the wound to the state and is then over. The shock and awe of the act ensures the lesson is learned by all, and the memory of that single terrible stroke maintains order far more effectively than 1,000 minor punishments. The true art lies in the unpredictable oscillation between these two poles. The ruler who is only ever generous will be seen as weak and be taken for granted. The one who is only ever severe will be viewed as a tyrant and invite conspiracy. But the prince who is selectively generous and surgically severe becomes an enigma. His subjects and his rivals are kept in a perpetual state of uncertainty. They never know whether their actions will be met with reward or retribution. This forces them to be constantly vigilant, to strive for his favor, and to fear his displeasure. They are not ruled by predictable laws of behavior, but by the calculated unpredictability of his will. This is the architecture of power, a flawless public facade built upon a foundation of absolute internal control, from which acts of both grace and terror are deployed not by passion, but by cold, unwavering purpose. To command the world, you must first wage war upon the self. This is the most arduous and solitary campaign a leader will ever undertake, fought not on a battlefield of soil and steel, but in the silent theater of the mind. The average individual is a collection of predictable reflexes, a creature of habit chained to his own nature. His anger has a trigger, his vanity has a price, and his loyalty has a breaking point. Because he does not know himself, he is an open book to anyone who bothers to read the pages. His life is a script written by others. The prince, however, is a master of internal insurgency. He treats his own personality as the first and most dangerous enemy to be subdued. This requires a brutal form of self-vivisection. You must place your own soul under a microscope, identifying every ingrained habit, every emotional impulse, every predictable pattern of thought, and systematically dismantle them. You must learn to act contrary to your own nature, not out of caprice, but as a deliberate exercise in control. If you are naturally generous, practice calculated austerity. If you are quick to anger, cultivate a glacial calm. If you are inclined to trust, practice strategic suspicion. This is not about becoming someone else. It is about becoming the master of the person you are, ensuring that your true self is a weapon kept in its sheath, to be drawn only at a moment of your choosing. This internal victory severs the link between external stimulus and your response. The insult that once provoked rage now becomes a data point. The flattery that once softened your judgment is now recognized as a probe. You achieve a state of active neutrality, feeling everything but being commanded by nothing. This is the inner citadel, the unbreachable fortress of will from which you observe the world. Your mind becomes a silent, ordered chamber, while the world outside rages with the chaos of unchecked emotion. You must become an enigma even to yourself, capable of actions that surprise you as much as they do your observers. This self-mastery is the ultimate source of power, for a man who is not a slave to his own passions can never be enslaved by the passions of others. The triumph is silent, unseen by any, and absolute. It is the fundamental separation of the ruler from the ruled. The ruled react. The ruler chooses. Once you have conquered the predictable patterns within yourself, you gain the ultimate weapon to manipulate the reality of others: uncertainty. The human mind is a pattern-seeking machine. It craves certainty. It desperately seeks to categorize and predict the behavior of others to feel secure. When you deny people this comfort, when you become unreadable, you create a strategic fog that clouds their judgment and paralyzes their will. This is the theater of uncertainty. It is a psychological battlefield where you dictate the terms of engagement by simply refusing to reveal your own. When your intentions are ambiguous, your adversaries are forced to guess, and in their guessing, they will inevitably project their own fears, their own desires, and their own strategies onto you. They will see a plot in your kindness, a threat in your silence, a trap in your generosity. They will exhaust their resources preparing for scenarios that exist only in their own minds. You force them to fight phantoms, and in doing so they reveal their true positions, their capabilities, and their breaking points. This is weaponized ambiguity. You must learn to orchestrate these theaters of doubt. A sudden and inexplicable shift in tactics can throw a rival organization into chaos. An unexpected act of clemency toward a defeated foe can sow suspicion among his allies, making them wonder if a secret deal has been struck. A period of deliberate inaction when everyone expects you to strike can be more unnerving than any attack, causing opponents to overextend themselves out of sheer anxiety. Your unpredictability becomes a constant, draining pressure on all who oppose you. They are forced into a state of hypervigilance, scrutinizing your every word, every gesture, for a clue that isn't there. This mental exhaustion leads to unforced errors, to rash decisions made out of a desperate need to break the tension. All the while you remain still, observing, gathering the invaluable intelligence they offer up in their panic. You are the calm center of the storm you created. The ultimate advantage of this strategy is that it forces others to act first. In their haste to resolve the uncertainty you have crafted, they will make their move, revealing their strategy in its entirety. This allows you to respond with perfect information, to counter not what you thought they would do, but what they have actually done. They are playing a game of blind chess, while you see the entire board with absolute clarity. The true prince does not win by being stronger or faster. He wins by ensuring his opponent never truly understands the nature of the contest until it is already over. He shapes their reality by mastering their perception of him, turning their own minds into his most effective weapon. You have learned to become a fortress of the mind and to wield uncertainty as a field of force. You have mastered the self to master the perception of others. But these are merely the preparations for the harvest. Before we reveal the masterstroke that calcifies your will into reality, ensure you are subscribed, for the final act of power is reserved for those who master timing. The moment of execution is the nexus where all your discipline and strategic patience converge. The common man, driven by impulse, either acts too soon, revealing his intentions, or waits too long for the mythical, perfect moment, allowing opportunity to wither on the vine. The prince understands a more profound truth. The perfect moment is not found. It is engineered. It is the culmination of all the uncertainty you have sown. Your opponents, weary from trying to decipher you, exhausted by their own projections, have made mistakes. They have overextended their resources, revealed their anxieties, and misjudged your intentions. They are now off balance, vulnerable, and ripe for the strike. This is the opportunity created by virtue, your skill, your discipline, your foresight, shaping the raw material of circumstance or fortuna to your advantage. Your decisive action, when it comes, is not a clumsy frontal assault. It is a surgical incision, delivered with absolute precision and shocking speed. Because you have remained illegible, the blow seems to come from nowhere. It is not the roar of the lion they expected, but the silent, fatal bite of the serpent hiding in the grass. This is the masterstroke. Machiavelli articulated the very physics of this action. Injuries ought to be done all at once, so that being tasted less, they offend less. The masterstroke is not a prolonged campaign. It is a singular cataclysmic event that fundamentally restructures the landscape of power in a single day. The elimination of a rival faction, the exposure of a conspiracy, the execution of a bold corporate maneuver. It happens so quickly that your opponents are defeated before they even realize they are at war. The shock of the event overwhelms their capacity for a coordinated response. The public too is stunned, but the pain is acute and, more importantly, brief. The memory of a single decisive act fades far more quickly than the resentment bred by a long, grinding oppression. They remember the outcome, the new stability, but the brutal mechanics of its creation blur into the past. By acting with overwhelming force in a concentrated burst, you minimize the period of instability and thus the window for hatred to fester. The benefit of this is twofold. Your enemies are neutralized, and the populace, valuing order above all else, will often accept the new reality simply because it is a stable one. You have not just won a battle, you have shattered their paradigm and replaced it with your own. Yet the masterstroke itself is not the final objective. Seizing power is a fleeting accomplishment, Consolidating it is the work of a lifetime. The true genius of the prince is revealed in the moments immediately following his victory. Where an amateur would celebrate, the prince begins to build. He does not rest upon his laurels. He immediately begins to lay the foundations of the new order, calcifying his triumph into an enduring structure of control. This is the time for the creation of new institutions, the forging of new alliances, the establishment of new laws, and most critically, the authoring of a new narrative. The prince, having acted from the shadows, now masterfully controls the light. He does not boast of his brilliant strategy, for to do so would be to educate his future rivals. It would make him readable, predictable, and therefore vulnerable. Instead, he crafts a myth. He may attribute his success to Fortuna, framing himself as the fortunate beneficiary of circumstance, a humble instrument of destiny. This makes his rise seem natural and inevitable, not the result of cold predatory calculation. He might allow his allies to take public credit for the victory, binding them to him with the currency of prestige while he retains the actual power. He might even create a convenient enemy, a scapegoat upon whom the public can project their anxieties, uniting them behind his new regime. He allows legend to obscure the mechanism of his power. The people are given a story they can understand, a narrative of fate or heroism, while the cold strategic calculus remains his secret alone. Having reshaped the world, he once again retreats into the fortress of his mind, becoming an enigma once more. His power is now embedded in the very structure of the new reality, and he himself is a figure of myth, respected, feared, but never fully understood. This ensures his reign is not dependent on constant acts of force, but on the enduring psychological weight of his initial, decisive strike. This, then, is the ultimate expression of the covert trait that bends reality. It is not about a simple choice between good and evil, for these are luxuries the powerful cannot afford. It is about the higher morality of efficacy, of order, of stability in a world perpetually teetering on the brink of chaos. The idealist wishes the world were different. The tyrant tries to bludgeon it into submission, but the prince, the true strategist, understands that reality is a matter of perception. He does not fight the world, he redefines it. The world is not a stage upon which you are a mere actor reciting lines. It is a block of uncut marble, and your will is the chisel. The ultimate power is not to be seen at all, but to have everyone move according to a design they believe is their own. The greatest throne is the one no one knows you are sitting on.